interventional or things that you're doing directly with patients. I think that's part of it. You saw that since you're coming to that workshop later in the week, you saw that white paper that I wrote.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
I actually, and one of the things I want to be able to do is I need to talk to the other. I wrote about 2/3 of that, but still, I need to talk to our co-organizers as to how much of that they're comfortable of us using, or if we would just want to add them as authors. I don't know.
Sure, understand.
But I actually think that there are many uses of robots in these kind of crises that aren't directly related to patient handling or touching patients or intervening. So maybe I didn't understand your point.
Oh, I think my point, I think I understand what do you mean. I think that makes sense. What I'm saying is because the original plan is to have a review article that covers all kinds of robots. I think that's maybe what kind of very comprehensive scope.
Is this robots for COVID or is this robots in general?
Yeah, I think I prepared some like the slides. So basically, this
why don't we go through those maybe then?
Sure. Yeah, I think maybe I can share the screen with you and. So just a brief background, like basically, the reason maybe we focus on a little bit of medical is because Robin probably wants keep. Maybe we can just do the review article, but for that one, I need to confirm with Robin, and because initially.
Yeah, I thought what you were saying, though, this isn't about what's being done; it's about what roles we see in the future. It's forward.
Yes, and we certainly can cover what has been done, but we also want to do kind of like a perspective, futuristic stuff, even for this perspective one. And so I'm thinking there could be two papers because the original one initially we met with. Let me share the screen with you. So yeah, so I think let me do the screen sharing because initially. Guangzhong, he is not very responsive to the emails what Brand and Robin sent to him. So it's got like a draft progress. So that's why Robin and I, also Michael Lee, we think maybe there could be another paper. But I think this could be also one paper. I think because it's flexible. It's just we can just touch base with Robin. Yeah. So yeah, I think basically this agenda. Maybe I can tell you a little bit of the progress we made and from the February NRIPI meeting to the discussion we had in March with Brand and Guangzhong, and also. Yesterday, I organized like a AIM conference workshop, basically a special session for robots for infectious disease. There are 5 speakers, including Axel and myself and Greg Fisher. Greg was my PhD advisor, by the way. I did my PhD with Greg and the WPI. And also Robin is doing a special issue in the robotics and autonomous system with Hajime Asama and myself. We are kind of like a guest editors for the special issue. I think the focus is maybe the scope of this perspective review, and also we can certainly talk about a little bit details about the classification and also how we split the task. Yeah. So yeah. So I think Dr. Taylor, you're already in the email about the robots for infectious disease consortium that Robin kind of like she established. And also there's a lot of like online kind of like a workshop and talks by Silicon Valley Robotics. They organized several workshops. I already watched that, and also Antonio, my postdoc, we also watched those kind of like talks there and took a lot of notes there. And for this perspective article, so I think this could be a perspective or could be the general review. And yeah, so it's basically. I think if it's the focus on the medical robot, let's say if we focus on medical robot, we want to review the state of the art and also identify unmet needs and the key barriers. And that's what I saw. You also wrote this in the NEE report.
one thing again, what is the broad scope? Is it sort of medical robots? Is it
Yeah,
COVID robots? I mean, what is the?
I think I wrote somewhere.
I'm sorry, I kind of came into this late, and
Yeah. So no problem. So I think I where I wrote.
I probably.
So I think one question. So I think I discussed this with Robin and also Axel like a few in a few meetings. So maybe we want to focus on COVID-19 as a major application, but in the discussion session we can also cover other, for example, other non-airborne disease. So I think this maybe is 5,000 words is quite limited actually. So we want to maybe stay focused just to cover for this pandemic, but I also want to make this kind of like a generic in the discussion and the introduction section. Yeah. So basically, if you see this is the taxonomy that Robin created. So basically, maybe the question is, should we cover the second column or all the columns? I think our, yeah, this is, I'm not sure if you have seen her taxonomy before.
I've seen her present it once, but
right.
Yeah.
So the original, I mean, maybe it's still the current plan is there's a review paper covers also is 6 columns, and the perspective paper focuses on the second column. But okay. I think, yeah, but I think you can also help us to decide. I think either way it works. Yeah.
Sure. Well, no, that makes, now I understand a little better. That makes sense.
Yeah, okay. And so basically, for this perspective review, let's maybe say, per se, if we focus on the second column, the clinical care. And I also made a kind of like some like a classification for this kind of like a medical robot in the continuum care, from prevention, screening, diagnosis, treatment, recovery, and home care. I think for the prevention and home care, like home care, I mean like maybe personal wearable robot. I think the first one and the last one, I mean, I'm not quite sure if we want to cover that, because I think we can, because if we think about this in the continuum care, this is kind of like a pretty standalone focus on the hospital-based clinical care, and also maybe a little bit of home care. So I think, yeah, I want to get your feedback about this, the scope for this medical robot article. Also, there are many other ways to classify those robots. And for example, Robin, she wrote this, for example, in the, even if we think about the clinical care primarily in the hospitals, and she listed this. And basically, all this column is what she discussed with me. And she said, maybe we focus on the top blue square, and like basically the blue one, except this emergency auto dock application. This is like a DAPA trauma port ones. But I think this, her classification maybe not very, maybe not, because it's still tentative. I think this classification maybe not very intuitive from our medical robotic perspective. Like, for example,
actually, if you look at that, I think it does kind of. I like your way of doing it better. I mean, there she's focusing on systems, and you're focusing on workflow, which makes more sense.
Right.
And you can take each of those areas and you can map it onto your picture personally, but I'm just an author. What Peter and what do the other authors think? We've been doing most of the talking. And
yeah, no, I like the previous sort of workflow chart that Hao had, and because things can kind of fit in those boxes pretty well.
Yeah, I like that one a lot, the slide 4.
Yeah, and whether we go with, I mean, prevention, I guess, is mostly going to be what, disinfection or something, and the
Well,
home care. I don't know how much there is
yeah,
in those space.
yeah, and I think we can say something about it. Um, but yeah, I think we can say something about that. But you know, then I think
Mhm.
the rest of it is you've got to pay somehow you're dealing with the patient.
Yeah. I mean, the other one was a little, I mean, basically it seemed to break it into invasive, non-invasive, and then I don't even know what non-COVID surgery, what the point of
Right.
that is.
So I think she means, I think there's another little bit of breakdown what she said. So let me.
Oh well, that kind of makes sense to me, Peter. I mean, if you've got a infectious patient and you need to do surgery on the patient or do some procedure on the patient.
Yeah, if that's what it means about any sort of additional precautions for a patient who has an infection, but it wasn't clear that it meant that, and even if it does, is there anything in that space?
Well, I don't know if there's anything now you can say there is a need there,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the need for more telerobot, you know, actually a little bit more remote telerobotics than we're used to.
Yeah.
But Axel, what do you think?
Let's see. Yeah, I just find it more intuitive to look at it from kind of the workflow perspective.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. Okay.
But I think
So-
the other, like, you know, for surgery, it comes down to, again, prevent, like, if you had an infectious patient, you'd want to be able to disinfect. You may want to have some more sort of remote operation, but it seems like those capabilities are kind of general.
Yeah. One thing I wouldn't tie it so specifically to COVID. We can use COVID as an example,
Right.
but among other things, the dominant transmission mechanism for COVID isn't all that well established right now.
Yeah.
And so you know there's this big controversy about how important this decontaminating surfaces are.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
obviously something you'll do, but if you do it perfectly, will that reduce the transmission by 10%,
Right.
90%? We don't know.
Yeah. So
But I like this perspective better, I think.
I'm sorry. Can you like?
I like this chart a lot better. Was this yours?
Yeah. This is I did this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
nice.
yeah. And I'm sorry. We've also Antonio's been very quiet.
Yeah, Antonio. So Antonio helped me to create the chart. So
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, of course he helped me to collect the pictures and putting everything together. Yeah.
Okay. You know, your home care picture is a little bit off, I think. I mean, you just needed a picture.
Yeah, I this is kind of like a placeholder. So yeah, for the disinfection robots, actually, Antonio and I already wrote like 1,500 words. So we already did a lot of like a literature review
Right.
Since March. So we understand pretty well, and we even give a talk about those robots for disinfection ones. There's even a swarm type of disinfection robot. There are three robots. So for example, maybe I can briefly go over the talk I gave during the, yeah, so this is the scope I want to talk with you. So basically, focus on COVID, or also cover non-airborne, and also, I think we also maybe want to cover, for example, the robots that can be used in the future to ensure continuity work. For example, many elective surgical procedures were canceled, and Hopkins and many other hospitals that incurs a lot of like economic loss. I think in the future with those tele robots, this can maybe make this type of surgery ongoing despite this kind of like a pandemic. And also, if we should cover home care and also cover disinfection robot. And Robin said ideally we can get everything ready by end of July.
That's optimistic.
Yeah, that's maybe a little bit too optimistic. So that's why I put it here maybe in August. That's maybe more practical. So yeah, we did some like this kind of like a kind of like a literature review. Antonio and I did this together. So basically, we identified both ultraviolet light-based disinfection and chemical-based disinfection. There are different specifications, including some like a very simple, actually a device type of disinfection. It's more like a device than a robot. And also this UVD from Denmark is more like a robot because it has a mobile powered non-holonomic views and SLAM navigation. And there's also from University of Southern California, they have this manipulation.
Well, that one, for the one on the right, what are they using for actual disinfecting? Is that, again, UV light?
Yeah, those are both, those are all UV light-based robots. It's just that they have a little bit of kind of like
yeah, no, that's something well, is the UV light in the end effector? I mean, that one looks like something I wanted to get someone to work on, where for disinfecting complicated, that looks more just like a light mounted on the robot. But
yeah, that's. I think they also
had a complicated piece of equipment, and the robot had a UV flashlight. It could shine it into all the nooks and crannies.
I see. Yeah, that's a good point because those are like a light-based UV light-based robot have a light or sight limitation. So. Yeah. It's not that's why they also want to use the chemical disinfection. So this one is kind of cool, but I don't know if that's really useful. There's 3 robots. They put them together. It's like a swarm. So this is a product being sold in a company in Illinois. So they put 3 robots. So you can do one-shot disinfection. It's very efficient and one cycle time. And but I talked with Robin. She said, we don't know if this is a little bit overkill, but this is certainly a cool robot. Yeah. And also there's a...
Yeah, didn't Jeff Sievertson work on this, Russ? Do you know his efforts? I know he worked on that a bit for disinfecting the scanners at the med school.
Oh, who did you mention?
Jeff Sievertson.
Oh, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think what Jeff had, what I'm familiar that he did with UV light was he basically a closet for disinfecting masks. But yeah, there was some discussion. I don't know what he actually did.
Okay.
We can ask him.
We can ask him.
This one from Ireland is kind of like based on TurtleBot, is basically used for the imager disinfection for the CT scanner, and it's kind of like a very like an agile robot, but it's just like a quick repurposing the mobile robot with the UV light. And also there's a chemical disinfection, and they basically based on the electrostatic spray. So this has better disinfection performance than kind of like standard, a manual chemical disinfection. So they have developed this. Is also a mobile manipulator, and they use a LiDAR sensor for situation awareness, and also stereo camera for depth sensing. So it's a mobile manipulator, but mounted chemical spray device. Yeah. Also for intubation, so the complication rate is high, and this is a kind of like the standard, kind of like recommended airway management and tracheal intubation, like a specification. So there are, you see, there are airway assistants and also operator, and basically help us to understand the workflow. I mean, help me, yeah. And there's also different types like robotic intubation. I think this one is from your lab, and so basically, in this year, Brian Nelson published a paper about basically did some like segmentation, anatomical segmentation to enhance the kind of like situation awareness during the navigation procedure. And so there are some limitations. I think one simple solution is the third one is from Columbia University, some student project. They basically put some like a force sensor, a very simple force sensor, and to provide some like a tactile feedback. I think last year they won the NIBIB, some like a design innovation best paper award, best product award. And in terms of nursing, so Chris Halder also gave a talk in the ACRA plenary talk. And so basically he identified the 5 primary factions. And basically there are like some robots only for telepresence, some are also for tele manipulation. And basically manipulation is the major bottleneck because you need to deal with this precision task and also power tasks. And there are some solutions. So basically in my lab, we are doing this high torque motors. So our motor is basically twice better than the MIT motor. So they use this motor, similar motor for the MIT Cheetah, and also this Berkeley bimanual robot.
Is that motor, is that a magnetic torque motor, or is it?
Yeah, it's just standard brushless DC motor, but by some unique design, we can enhance the torque density. So because for human movement, it's we require high torque for the low speed, right? So basically we compromise speed and we maximize the torque. So that's why we make this kind of like a pancake type of motors. So my lab basically have the best pancake motor, as I said, about twice better than the MIT motor. So we use that for our, do you have a question?
No, I was just saying, yeah, back when I was at IBM, we did a bunch of work with variable reluctance.
Yeah, so it's the same principle. It's a new design, like electromagnetic optimization and also material optimization. So basically, my lab, we use that for exoskeleton, and we designed the most lightweight exoskeleton. And I think the next thing could be like for manipulation, the robotic arm and the robotic hand. Actually, Mason, Dr. Mason from Matt Mason from CMU, they designed a robotic hand using this quasi direct drive actuation. So I think this could be something useful for physical human-robot interaction, and also multimodal grasping. And Daniela Russ, her team presented this paper in this year's ACRA. They combined suction cup and soft fingers. So they do this multiplexing two model-based grasping. So it can improve the grasping capability, but there's still like about 20% objects they cannot handle, like those objects. So my lab recently, so there's also some in the soft robot community, there's some this octopus inspired robot. Actually, in my lab, we also have a recent advances paper. We have this soft robot arm, soft robot gripper that can lift heavy objects up to 11 kilograms. And also we can modulate the stiffness, so we can lift delicate objects and also some powered grasping, some heavy objects. So this is something maybe, so I think this could be a little bit enabling technology section to talk about those stuff. I think Dr. Taylor, in the soft robotic community, it's kind of like people have the reputation for making toys. I think those are, high performance soft robots that have some kind of value to solve some real world problems. And also, my lab is also developing this kind of like new type of gripper in collaboration with a professor from NC State University. Basically, this is a new type of suction cup that can lift a person. So we are doing a Spider-Man project using this gripper.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think you can see this one small cup with 80 kilopascal, we can lift a person. So it's really it's basically a portable version that we are thinking about. We are working on a paper and design, basically doing a Spider-Man demonstration for wall climbing. And also yesterday in the workshop, And Alex Hawks from UC Santa Barbara, he talked about this one robot for tracheo intubation application. I think it's still a little bit preliminary, but they tested in some like this mannequin and also some like a cadaver model. They found that seem to be has some like advantages, yeah, in the Stanford Medical School. So yeah, so this is the talk I gave. But back to the outline, I think there are maybe 4 sections.
Yeah,
The first
hey,
is
Al, can you send that talk to us as well, or is it on
yeah, it's already in the Dropbox folder.
Okay.
Yeah, you can yeah, I can email you, but you can also check.
Be sure I have the link.
Yeah, I think if you want to know more details or any robot here, I can give you more information.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like I feel bad for doing soft robots for the last few years. Only this year we are coming up with some new useful soft robots. And if you don't have so it's under the perspective article, this folder, and so it's if you go to this so there are 2 major folders, the perspective article and the review article. There's also a paper folder. So I saved under the perspective article folder called Robot for Infection Disease, AIM, HOW, that file. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's all in Dropbox.
Yeah. Axel and Peter, do you have any question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a little challenge to summarize all the, state of the art, plus, kind of do the outline perspective for the next 10, 15 years, right? In kind of a broad area. So it's going to be kind of hard.
I see your point. Yeah, for example, I totally agree. So basically, I created this kind of like a tentative outline with Robin. This is the first part could be the introduction, right? So we want to give an overview and also the state of the practice. And
cool.
so this is kind of like a state of practice, kind of like a practical application, right? It's a kind of like high priority, but not really researchy flavor, right? And kind of like repurposing existing robots. And the second portion could be the state of the art and basically the different medical robots. And you see I put some random number like 600 words for the introduction, to about 2,000 words for the kind of like a review. In each review, we talk about both the state of the art and also a future unmet needs and the future work. And for the third section is a kind of like enabling technologies from sensing, actuation, and control. And we maybe your autonomy subsection can fall into this the third section. And also maybe we can talk about the new actuation, soft robot. Maybe Peter can talk about the teleoperation with the new high-speed communication. And the last section is kind of like a discussion. And so basically, if we add those numbers together, it's 5,000 words. But if we divided this, let's say I come out with this random number, 2,400 words. If we divide by the category of this medical robots, each robot we can have about on average 400 words around that number. So it's not yeah. So yeah, maybe we need to keep some. For example, the first one is a prevention disinfection robots. The last one, maybe we can skip the exoskeleton. I can easily write the exoskeleton.
Yeah, how in looking at this, I think they're broadly 2 sets of considerations that I was just trying to think how we could work it in here.
Yeah.
One are needs that if you have a robot doing something useful, I mean, rehab is one example. What is the increment that you need in order for that robot to do what it needs to do in a contaminated environment or in an infectious environment? The second is looking at specific roles, specifically addressing problems that come from the fact that you're in an infectious environment. For instance, robots for taking samples is a good example of that. They're either things that are, but that are there already, but you're somehow beefing them up or need more of them for the sake of gathering swabs or venipuncture or I mean, one of the things that we've been also looking at, there are actually two groups at Hopkins looking at are robots for ultrasound of lung.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're Axel and Peter, and well, we have another robot. I thought we were also writing a paper about it, about this little robot specifically for pushing buttons in ICUs.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw the video. Yeah.
So,
I think it's in his outline already.
Yeah. So I think one thing somewhere there needs to be a discussion of those facts. I mean, there are a lot of things that you need that are the same as you would need for any other robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, working, say, on rehab or whatever. And then for those, somehow I think it's worth our while to talk about, well, what else you need if that is to do its job in a contaminated environment.
Mm-hmm.
And, what are the research barriers? What are the things that we don't know how to do to cross that increment?
Yeah.
And then there are other things where the reason you're using a robot is specifically so that it can do something in that contaminated environment. The decontamination robots are an example. The button pusher is an example. Maybe you could argue the intubation is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So that somewhere I think that discussion maybe needs to be there.
Yeah. So
I would suggest that we put somewhere in the beginning.
You mean in the introduction?
Lay that out. If you ask me if we figure out where, I can probably write 2 paragraphs on it or 1 paragraph. But you understand what I'm talking about there. Look, broadly, we're going to be talking about robots specifically in clinical care in infectious environments. And there's some things that just come from the fact that they're robots in clinical care. And we'll talk about some of those things, but we can't cover it all because that by itself is a huge survey article.
Yeah.
And there are other things where you're using a robot specifically because you're in a contaminated environment. And I think we need to lay that concept out in the introduction.
Yeah.
And then I would suggest, kind of as part of the rubric for each of these categories, to talk about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can wrap up in the conclusion, kind of wrapping it up. We see all of these things, and to the extent that some of these needs are the same in multiples of these uses. I think the ability to decontaminate the robot is a great example. We can talk about that, but maybe maybe we can develop sort of a matrix and a chart, and then we can take some of those common elements and discuss those sort of in another subsection. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
I mean, there was there was a book chapter I wrote that on it was for that Nikai book robots in Chi, or broadly in Chi, and that seemed to work. Talking about the various things in Chi, and then you teased out some kind of common themes.
What's Chi?
CAI.
Computer-assisted intervention.
Okay, okay.
The MICI, the MICI
Yeah,
Society,
okay. I know what you mean.
it grew out of, actually, there was a previous thing called medical robotics and computer-assisted surgery, and it merged with something called visualization and biomedical computing.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
And one other conference, and that made MICI, and we had a long argument about what to call it.
Okay, yeah,
I
totally makes
insisted
sense.
on calling it Chi rather than robotics, and that was probably a political mistake. But
I see. Yeah.
no, but other than that, what do other people think? I think this is a reasonable outline.
Yeah.
For diagnosis, I would include a couple other things other than CT guided robots. I would include broadly robotically assisted imaging. That includes ultrasound.
Can you repeat your last two sentences? There's some background noise.
Under diagnosis, I would include beyond just CT guided robots, which I'm not sure quite what that would be. I mean, biopsies, but broadly, robotically assisted imaging.
Yeah. I think we talked this.
That includes ultrasound. That includes various other things.
Yeah. So I talked this with the.
I would also include things like that venipuncture robot that you had.
What a puncture robot?
The blood sample.
Yeah. So so I talked this ultrasound, CT, and even MRI with Axel, and so we think most robots will be CT guided or ultrasound guided ones.
Yeah, there's other work that Imad Bakhtar has done with me for a long time. So that Axel, I'm sure you're aware of.
Absolutely, we'll include that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this Word file, I kind of like highlighted. So basically, the bold section is for Axel and Peter.
Okay, it's all there. I see what you did. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we also Axel said maybe he can read it.
Something like CT. I don't know if robots are one of the big issues is how do you transport patients into and out of the scanner without contaminating the room? You know the discussions that we were having on that, Axel. You were
absolutely, with like a bubble or something. That's a big issue with the clinical centers, that it takes like half an hour to clean the CT scanner after each COVID patient.
Yeah, so in a way, that's prevention. You can imagine. I mean, it goes under diagnosis. It goes under prevention. How do you
disinfection, right?
Yeah.
Or how do you prevent infection in the first place? Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
I guess I like it a lot, this outline. I guess it's a little misleading to call it state of the art by category, right? Because each category we want to not only have state of the art, we also want to discuss unmet needs and future work. So I think
the roles of robotics. I would just call that the roles of robotics in infectious disease.
Right.
You mean the title of this section?
Yeah. Robotic systems include the roles of robotics at the different stages in the workflow.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we want to say medical robots.
Yeah, or you could say medical robots in the care. And in fact, I would say that medical robots in infectious disease in infected environments or something like that.
You want to change this to infected environment?
I would, because that's what we're dealing with here is infectious environments. Medical robots, I would just call the subsection medical robots in infectious and contaminated in infectious environments, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, let's put it this.
I would call it infectious, not infected, but.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and then you have the workflow, and it makes a lot of sense. We've introduced the workflow to begin with. Now we're going to go through each of these.
Sure.
Yeah. In home care, how do you think some kind of home monitoring, would also play a role?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Do you have some concrete examples, or are you also making a secret robot for that?
No, I mean, yeah, with Rashad Mittal, he's looking into kind of acoustic sensor, and other groups have been doing that for, monitoring lung sounds to kind of see the when the lungs are in a position where you need to go in the hospital, kind of like finding that cutoff. Of course,
Sure.
Oxygenation is being measured. I mean, it's less robotic because it's not tied to an actuation,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I also read some paper from John Rogers. He makes a lot of like cool medical sensors, and
Right.
yeah, we can mention. And I think hopefully we have enough space to cover this. Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing I might add there, it actually comes back to what you've got in screening and diagnosis is monitoring. Broadly, you mentioned monitoring, but for instance, if you need to have blood draws frequently, I think there are a couple things there, or you need to be able to have highly decontaminatable things.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on this?
Well, it was sort of what Axel was saying about monitoring, and you mentioned an acoustic sensor. But there, like you could imagine doing sort of routine temperature checks. There are a lot of things. Some of those can be done kind of by hand. Some may require a little bit more skill. I don't know if you would, for instance, do frequent blood draws, but if you had some reason for some infectious disease, you don't want the person to have to come back to the hospital.
Right.
So
yeah.
So now I don't know what exactly we would have there, but that's something.
So yeah, this is I think remind me this triage robots. I think this I read from the New England Journal of Medicine. This is actually a very important step to kind of to either in the hospital or using some apps to help people so reduce the number of people to visit the hospital. So like some digital sensor or apps, or even a robot that in the hospital, a telepresence robot to do this triage application.
I think the other area where there would be a lot of use for in the home is in things like cleaning and decontamination. Same that we had up in prevention. And because you've got an infected patient that may be now at home, I mean, and there are other people, so you need to be able to do, and then all of the things that we talk about for robots assisting in tasks of daily living, I think you're going to have, but suddenly you have this new requirement on them that they have to be able to work in a contaminated environment, which may mean that we need ways of disinfecting them. There are additional design constraints that you're going to have. I mean, it might be that you'll need drapes that you can put on them and change once a day. Who knows?
Yeah. I think I can certainly feel like I need those robots at home that they can help me to do this instead of I do this.
Yeah. So what we do is we come back again to this theme of, look, we see increasing roles of robots in clinical care already.
Yeah.
And some of these things we might want more of, or we might want to do specifically because we're in a contaminated environment, and others we need to do anyhow because we have sick people and we need to be able to treat them in a contaminated environment. And so I think I can try to write something at the beginning that kind of makes that distinction. And then
here?
I would do it up in the introduction.
Oh, introduction. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you can leave something. We can move it. I mean, wherever.
Sure. Yeah. I think I can put yeah, here. Yeah.
Yeah. There we are. I mean, it's sort of part of that. And then back in the conclusion, one other thing that we put in that white paper that is extremely important to me, it has to do with what we really need out there is an installed base of robots and engineers that aren't necessarily designed for use in design in these environments, but that can be quickly upgraded. Because first, there might be, take as an example, a robots for use in an ICU. We're going to see more and more robots out there for use in an ICU. Anyhow, I mean, we hope that is the case. And in designing those robots, if you think about how they would work in a highly infectious environment like COVID or Ebola, maybe there's some additional capability that you would want to build in now, even if you don't deploy it now.
Do you have some what kind of additional capability?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the challenges that we're facing with just like the ICU robot development in general is that, you've got all these great tools geared at researchers like Ross and all the packages, but then there isn't quite the same thing on the sort of the human factors or non-robotics researcher side. So if you had some more user-friendly elements that could be built in, whether it's sort of interface standards that are easier to work with from portable devices like phones and iPads, rather than requiring a Linux PC, as well as just, I think, a better better understanding of kind of how a human would interact with this, because I think that really also goes to the home environment. I think, it's one thing to deploy a robot where you've got trained nurses that can use it, but you want to put a robot in somebody's home, it's got to be pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those points that, Peter, you're probably able to articulate that.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing that the example I had in mind was you've got a home care robot doing something, but now if you're going to use that robot in a room where you've got a very sick, highly infectious person, that robot still has to interact with other people. So you need the ability to either prevent the robot from getting contaminated or for cleaning it.
Yeah.
And I could imagine several schemes. One is you design the system already to be able to decontaminate itself. Another is that you design it in a way that it's easy to add a kit that does it.
Yeah.
But I think the key point, and if you want me to say something in this introduction, I can, or in the conclusion, is we're going to have more and more robots doing things in our society, and to the extent that we can, at low cost, anticipate some of these places where additional flexibility is needed, then perhaps we can build that into the system to begin with, or at least begin to train people to do that. I mean, that thing that Robin had, where that big survey, most of the robots being used right now were actually repurposed from something else.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, you could imagine that if you'd had some notion that you might have to repurpose it, you might have designed some interface a little bit differently.
Yeah.
You might have added, you know, a couple extra attachment points.
And
Yeah.
I find this section doesn't really fit well in that home care. I think this might be a fit better in the next category, right?
Well, I think that that general point needs to be made, not so much.
Right.
It was just an example. I think the general point needs to be made.
Yeah.
Either in the beginning, in the intro, or the conclusion. Well, no, it's not decontamination of home robots specifically, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's not even decontamination. That's an example. But my point is that in the next major crisis, we need to be able to mobilize, which means that mostly you've heard the phrase, you go to war with the army you've got, not the army you wish you had.
Mhm.
You go into an infectious disease crisis with the robots you have, not with the robots you wish you had.
Mm.
And,
So that would be a good enabling advance, right?
yeah, and so that part of, and I think there are two, personally, and some of this we'll be talking about in this workshop, Hal.
Yeah.
I think there are really two things that are really crucial here. One is technical, and the other is educational. That technically we need capabilities to make these machines more readily adaptable, either because just in general for everything they do, or some additional attention to how can I repurpose this robot when I get a little bit different requirement. And some of it is educational. We can't just take all the PhD researchers or even all the graduate students and suddenly that's our workforce.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Well, that means that the industry that's going to be supporting these robots in the field have got to have people, probably most of them with master's degrees from our fine, high quality universities, we hope, who have the skills and the understanding in order to understand how to make those adaptations quickly and at low cost.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm preaching, but I should be quiet for a while. But
Yeah,
I can try to provide a couple paragraphs of the introduction there.
Sure. Yeah, that's what we really need. Yeah.
On that thought, but then I think we can some of those points. Then people, where applicable, you can refer to it in your in each of those sections.
Yeah, I think that sounds really, really useful, and we needed this kind of like a high-level vision, and it's not only technical; it's a comprehensive solution to tackle current and future problems. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Do you just a small question? I can do a Google Doc, so we can edit it simultaneously. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer to use a Word file? Any preference?
I have mixed feelings. I have a love-hate relationship personally with Google Docs, but
I have similar. Yeah, the format is not very nice, so yeah, it's kind of harder to manage the format.
I do like writing. I prefer Word to LaTeX for this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's easier.
Okay. I prefer the other way, but that's fine.
Well, the point is that with change tracking and all.
Well, yeah. I mean, I tend to go with something like Git with LaTeX, and change tracking is in the commits. But,
Axel and I are both ME faculty, so.
I think Axel's okay with.
Yeah, I can do that, but yeah, it's just
Git and I don't get along very well, Peter. Probably
Yeah,
because
I know. Git is. I kind of wish that you know we things like SVN were a lot easier to use.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with whatever.
Me too.
We can go either way. If you're using Word and kind of versions, then somebody needs to be the central editor.
Yeah.
Would that
Right.
be well? I mean, the other thing, if we're doing a Google Doc, we need to, that you need to put it generally into suggested edits or versus committed edits.
Right. Right.
Whatever you guys want to do, I can do. Personally, I'll probably make a copy and edit
Yeah.
it.
I
If
think.
it's a Google Doc, I'll cut and paste to make suggestions. But
Yeah. I think
But-
maybe. Yeah. Sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah. So. Sorry. Sorry. I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry. I thought you finished.
Go
Yeah.
ahead. I'm done.
So, I mean, maybe I created a Word file with the outline there. I already did that. So I already have this outline there. So we can have this local copy, but I also do a Google Doc. I think maybe in the beginning, let's maybe work on the Google Doc because it's easier to synchronize.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe in the beginning. And when we have something already there, I can download and do the formatting again. And in the later stage, we can maybe use Word. That's my suggestion. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really difficult if you do citations. They kind of get lost once you transfer from Google Doc to Word. So I think we should stick with one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think just as on Dropbox, a Word file is fine, right? And we can work individually in our sections and then merge it into like the master copy.
For
Sure.
citation, I use EndNote. I don't know what you guys use, but I've got a very large EndNote library, and it integrates very nicely with Word.
I
use Zotero.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I use human typing. So I use, for example, I do like let's say maybe this way, like this something like this way. Then we reformat again, and so we.
I use what I just use EndNote, and it it pulls.
Yeah, I think maybe
Peter.
I was gonna say I have the same system as How in Word. I'm not really set up for serious.
You use what? You use BibTeX for most stuff.
Yeah, I use BibTeX, and if I do stuff with you, basically I just put the thing in and you put it in EndNote.
I think you other guys are writing probably most of the text that will involve citations. So leave it at.
I'll do it the way How does it, and then we can sort of fix it at the end.
Yeah, I think maybe we start this way, or you can do whatever you want, and you put the reference in the end, and I will ask my student to put them together, or I can do that together. Yeah. So in the end, I will do this editing to put all this reference in the right format. Yeah. So you can either do EndNote or do this kind of like format, whatever you prefer. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Hey, how do you have that from that talk that Robin gave a while ago, where that slide of hers with the percentage of robots that were repurposed versus?
Yeah. So
do you have a source for that or whatever?
Yeah, I have like both this file and you see this one, and also she sent me this one. So it's also in the paper folder. I have like Robin Murphy. So basically she.
Okay.
So
yeah,
basically,
do we have the citation? Because I thought
most are website. so
okay.
Basically,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me show you. It's basically in the paper folder. If you go to Robin Murphy, her file is there. So you can find her latest taxonomy, and also this Word file. This Word file, she is a 5 pages file. She basically she collected kind of like a heritage and kind of like a new engineering. So some new engineering. So three kind of like types of clinical care robots, and of course she's using her subcategory, but she collected some gaps basically mentioned in the news. So this kind of like we call this she called this state of practice. I think either I think maybe someone or Robin or myself or anyone want to maybe write the state of practice. she suggested that the state of practice is very limited, so she doesn't want to. So this could be a kind of short paragraph about the state of practice.
What I would do is I would introduce the organization that you have there.
You mean this one?
No, what I mean is what you're calling state of practice could go in the introduction. What I would suggest, if you go back to the outline for a second.
Sorry,
or
maybe
slide where you've been making
this is better. Maybe this is better.
Workflow.
What I would do is I would say that bullet that says may wind up in second section.
Right.
I would actually put that in the second section, or move it in the introduction and the figure of blue squares. Both of those I would move after what you've got in green here.
So you want to move this?
Yeah. Actually, if you let me drive, I can.
Yeah,
there.
you can.
Like that, but and I would do figure blue squares before I do state of practice, but those are tied.
Yeah, I give you the access. Can you see the?
Yeah, because I think the detail is where you're going to. Oh, I can control it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's tele operational. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would. I basically here. What I think I would do is I don't know if we really need that. I mean, this is a couple paragraphs.
Sure.
Then what I would do, I think, is then talk about basically introduce the workflow.
Yeah, that's very useful. Yeah.
And I would put the gaps in the state of practice in each of the sections.
Can you? Yeah,
so I think I would take that. Is this Word? Are you using Word or I'm sorry? Are you using? Is this
PPT file?
Is it PC or is it Mac?
PC.
Okay, that explains why that didn't do it.
Okay.
And then I think I would. I would do. I think I would actually put.
Yeah, let me move this.
Down to, I would. You need to paste it because I cut it.
Oh,
but I would move it down to.
You drive it. Okay, sorry.
You drive. You go ahead and drive. But I would put the gaps either. I would talk about gaps here, and then in the conclusion section, come back to it.
You mean paste here or?
No, I would the next section. In the conclusion.
Here.
Yeah, but in terms of the gaps, I would put those in under each of the categories, and then summarize. No, oh no. Here.
Yeah, I think I didn't follow you.
I would put the role up front. Yeah, let's go back. where were we here? Right. Let's put this back here just for the moment. And then this is what I would move these into the second section. I'm not sure what your figure of blue squares was. Was that Robin's slide?
Yeah, that's her notation. It's basically, I think.
I wouldn't bother with that at all.
Right. Yeah, there's no the blue square anymore. Yeah.
And I would put this.
Oh, I think you're using the Mac. Did
I do Mac again? I'm sorry. I am. One thing I'm fearing is I've been putting off, but I've got to migrate right after that workshop to the new Mac I've gotten, and all the software is going to be screwed up. I would put the figure there as part of the introducing the workflow and role of robotics.
Sure.
I mean, you want something that's very brief here, and then you in this section we can go into greater detail. So here, basically I was just going to put a note that says
Yeah.
That's that. I think that, to me, that makes more sense. I mean, that we start out, we kind of set the stage very broadly. Then for each of these state of, the role in infectious diseases, you say, here are some potential roles. Here's what's being done. Here are some of the challenges as to what you would need to do more.
Right.
And then in the conclusion section, we can kind of pull it all back together in terms of some of the other discussion items. At least that's a place to start. I'm sure you're going to want to reorganize it after we get it all going.
Sure, yeah. In terms of this kind of like a new enabling technology, some new like autonomy or physical human.
Right. Okay. Right. If we're going to have this, this actually ties pretty naturally to that. Well, there are robots for everything, or even robots for clinical care, and then there are robots for infectious disease. And you can say that, well, if you're going to use a robot, if the only way you can use a robot is the only way you can do something in an infectious environment will need a robot, then you need a robot that's able to do whatever you have to do.
Right.
So I think this section I would add here, and what Peter brought in, I would also add to this a lot of the kind of human factors stuff that Peter mentioned.
Yeah, that's in another page right now, but it would be
well
better.
I think you can come back. We probably actually want a table here.
Yeah, that one needed a lack of that sentence, not the whole thing, but just the last green sentence.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily cut it. I think what you're going to want to have is a matrix, whether it's an actual figure or not, and a lot of cross-referencing between these sections.
And here would also fit the ubiquitous robotics, the idea of kind of Russ that you mentioned earlier with going to war with the robots you have and having robots that can be multi-purpose,
Right.
Yeah, I'll say something about that in that introduction couple paragraphs, but yeah, then you can really drive on it here, because then you can point to concrete examples.
Right.
Yeah, I think that sounds very smooth now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and Axel, so the autonomy, you will handle this section?
Yeah, I can write something there, sure.
Sure, and this paramedics, I think this one is a little bit very, like I know you also have an ultrasound robot for this. I think this maybe not the mainstream medical robot, but in this case, it's kind of pretty useful. So do we want to mention?
Maybe it fits better under intervention and treatment.
Okay, so this is okay.
Well, right now, I think you need to just write it and then figure out where you're going to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, because I think this may be the emergency phase, so that's maybe early. So treat, yeah, we can decide this later.
I would say you could put it wherever you put it. I think you need to write it.
Okay, yeah, I think so. Do we want to split the task? I think what the Axel and Peter can write. I mean, which section do we want to take a piece?
Yeah. So most of the stuff on this page, I mean, on the ICU robot, that's a joint with really the three of us, Russ, Axel, and I, on what's been done. But as far as this other part in green about the human factors and interface standard, that I can do that.
So maybe this category, Peter can take the lead for this one. Is that okay?
Well, the whole thing. I mean, I don't know much about the whole thing. No,
okay.
I don't want to. I'll take on at least, you know, that last green sentence, and I can help with the.
Okay, I will mark a color for you. Some.
All right.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't care. Whatever.
I ran out of color. Orange, maybe orange. Okay. Okay.
Orange, fine.
Anything else? I know you can do this portion.
Well, I mean, that's related to that part.
Yeah. You can reiterate here.
You had mentioned also the teleoperation.
Right. And
so I would say I wouldn't focus as much on the wireless, sort of high-speed wireless. I think what's more important is being able to do really task-level teleoperation rather than, you know, joystick control of a robot. So that's kind of I think the.
Yeah, it actually ties back to autonomy.
Yeah, okay, sure, it does.
But you know, Peter, if you and Axel together took a look at, there's sort of three elements there that I think are natural for the Hopkins team, and
what's this Ludovic
delegating, as it were. But there's
Ludovic.
I mean, we're talking about robots that work with people in clinical care.
Yeah.
And if the robot can do some things autonomously, that helps, because especially in an environment where you can't have a person right there.
Yeah.
If they can, but also if I'm teleoperating at a task level, it's sort of this shared autonomy mode.
Yeah.
In all of these cases, the human factors become really crucial.
Yep. Yep.
So I think at the beginning maybe a little bit kind of like intelligence related, then we can talk about robotics related, or maybe the other way.
Well, okay. There's two things there. There's the control of these systems,
right? And
there's the physical attributes of these systems.
Yeah. Yeah, I think starting from control may be better, because we already talked about different types of robots here. So the robots are already here. So then we talk about control. Then we can.
I think what you're going to do, and you're going to say, look, here are the roles of robots in these various categories of our workflow.
Mm-hmm.
And in them, we're going to say, okay, here's what's been done. Here's some other things that could be done, but to really do it well, we need improvements in teleoperation, in better human factors, and autonomy. And then they'll see the section where we talk about that. And then what you'll see is you'll see those same needs in several of those sections. So in a way, the section on roles is talking about what is being done, what could be done, and to some extent identifying barriers. And then this section is talking about really the barriers in more detail in terms of a research agenda, is sort of the way I would understand it.
So maybe this section can be split in, for instance, design and control.
Yeah.
Like sensing, actuation, control, right? Okay. So maybe this better, like sensing, control. This
advanced enabling. You're saying in physical human-robot interaction, there's a physical aspect, and there's an intelligence aspect. And the way that's written is sort of maybe not mechanical engineer. For us computer scientists. You know, we used to arrogantly believe that software will do everything. Of course, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, I would say enabling advances in human-robot interaction, and then I would put the and then under that, you could have subcategories: sensing, actuation, control. And then for control, there's a low-level control.
Yeah.
And then there is sort of a high-level control. You could say actually low-level, and then there's intelligence. I mean, or you know, or somebody needs to reorganize that. I'm not sure we can really do it on the.
Sure.
Yeah. It might be better to write the first one first and kind of see what gaps kind of really fall out of the first section, right?
Yeah. But I think you know, some of these other issues are huge.
Yeah.
Like autonomy. And so I think when you write this section, you might want to make some allusion to, well, okay, autonomy, clearly here's again why we need autonomy, and maybe try to narrow what you're talking about to the things that seem really important, tied back to the needs.
Yeah.
Or maybe speculate about an evolution, or you could say, hey, here is the trend of research in that we're going to do no matter what, but here's how that could play into this this environment, or here is the piece of that we really need in order to meet these needs. So in a way, this is evolving into a standard NSF workshop where we have needs and opportunities.
Yeah.
Which we've all been perverted by the NSF.
Cool. Yeah, I think maybe Axel and I can think about how to structure this. I think maybe in this kind of like a general high level is easier. Then we can talk about maybe autonomy under the intelligence, and software robot or actuation falls under the actuation, and I think
operation also under control.
Yeah.
Calibration under control. Maybe that's is that okay? Or
yeah. You know, one thought also occurred. Axel has, and I'm sure Peter both heard this diatribe before. You know that Science Robotics editorial where we talked about these 6 or 7 categories in this progression of autonomy.
Yeah.
I never liked that. I was an author I was co-author of the editorial, but I never liked it.
Are you okay?
Because it gets you into a huge argument about what level of an autonomy of this taxonomy are you in. If you think about it, that entire taxonomy ultimately boils down to 2 questions. How can you tell the robot unambiguously what the robot is supposed to do in a way the robot will understand it? And how can you be sure the robot will do what it's told to do rather than something else? And so depending on what you're trying to tell the robot to do, if it's, follow this trajectory or follow my joystick, that's very simple and unambiguous. If it's take out the gallbladder, that requires the robot to can understand what maybe taking out the gallbladder is, but also needs to be able to map that onto what this patient is like. And suddenly there are all these other issues of artificial intelligence and autonomy and what you've been doing, Axel, with suturing is somewhere in between. You tell the robot, hey, I want you to close this wound.
Right.
Here to here. And oh, by the way, I've painted it this nice color for you or whatever. So I really think that's the key. And I guess a third element, and also if you think about that from the intelligence point of view, the robot needs situational awareness. Well, to have situational awareness, it needs to be able to sense its environment, which is all those sensings. If it's going to do something reliably, it has to have the manipulation capability to do it. And so I mean, this is one, at least the way I think of it, but I mean, you can, but I would structure this somehow to say, here are the issues and yeah, that's a better outline right there, I think.
Yeah, multi-purpose maybe fits more at the end there, because multi-purpose is also not just actuation, it's also the control, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
I mean, situational awareness, I would, you guys can work it out, but something like that.
Sure. The bolder blue is for Axel.
Oh.
Yeah, I ran out of color, so just want to check what, I think here I already marked your.
Well, okay, there's a bunch of, some of the green there aren't really quite mine.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll write that first section and then I'll try to pitch in with the Hopkins guys on some of these other sections.
Sure. In terms of discussion, I think, we still, it's also very important.
This will, I think we come back to this notion of, the huge unmet needs in research and technology and in deployed infrastructure. I can talk about that as well. And that's sort of what I could do in terms of you could turn that green, specifically in terms of what I want to talk about there, or I think we should talk about, is deployed infrastructure, skills, knowledge, customizability, which will have already been discussed, but we can pull them back.
Infrastructure, do you see that?
Deployed infrastructure and knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. This is certainly your section.
Yeah, and look, some of this, the insights are going to come out of
the workshop.
Will come out also out of this workshop where
right.
We've got to write a report for that too.
Yeah, it's
although it's broader than clinical care. This paper is going to be on clinical care aspects.
Right. I think this is a kind of like a very unique thing in this pandemic. Mobile can be in hospital.
Okay.
I think, yeah, this could actually very useful. I think maybe we can mention something here, or maybe
you could say that's sort of some blue sky scenarios, as it were. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry guys, I have to run.
I do too. I'm actually late.
Okay, yeah, I think just in terms of timeline, do we want to finish some draft by some time, or?
I can't think about this until next week, personally.
Okay, sure, I understand. Axel, do you have any preferred timeline? And maybe you can finish something. I think we need to do something for Dr. Taylor's, because we want to get his feedback after we write something.
Well, I think the actual amount of writing that I volunteered to do is maybe a page total.
Okay, yeah.
What is the total? I'm not good at word counts. What is the page?
5,000 words. So it's not many. It's a kind of like a very limited number of words. So
yeah, how many pages is that?
I think they didn't really limit the page, and also we can request to write this longer by talking to Michael Lee. So I think the general limit is 5,000 words. That's about 7-8 pages. So it's not that many words. Yeah. I think we very likely will run out of the words, and we can ask Michael Lee. Maybe he can give us extra space. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to look at that.
You mean the guideline?
I was actually going to look at that white paper just to see how many pages it or words.
The white paper you have is 6 pages, like 5.5 pages.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to get its word count.
Yeah. Actually, I know you are busy, but I just want to know realistically.
Yeah, I think I
can do the work and do some work, but I just want to, not trying to rush you. I just want to know how much time you can dedicate.
Yeah, no, next week I can dedicate some time to writing. Maybe we can touch base end of next week.
Yeah.
Okay, end of next week. Maybe let's say maybe Friday, next Friday. Are you available next Friday?
Thursday or Friday, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we Peter, are you also available next Friday? Any preference? So we talk about this in about.
Should be fine.
Yeah. And I can meet. By the way, that was about 2,300 words. That other thing we wrote.
Okay.
I probably could be sharing it around. That's one of the things I need to talk to the co-authors tonight about.
Okay, so you're thinking July 17th then to meet again.
Yeah. Do you have any? Maybe we knock down a time. The July. What time you prefer?
We have a robotics faculty lunch 12 to 1, and then I have a project meeting 1 to 2. That's hard for me to move.
And I have meetings basically 2 to 5. Look, I would suggest that what we do is we ask Ashley to do a doodle poll and find a time, either the 16th or the 17th.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I can also meet after 5 if need be. That may be harder for Peter and Axel, though. I don't know.
Less preferable, let's say.
Yeah.
Not out of the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a standing phone call with our son at 7 that I strongly.
Yeah.
I
don't want to get divorced.
Or maybe we can meet first and Axel, Peter, maybe we meet first or whatever. I think you can decide the schedule. And I think before we meet, maybe we can write a little bit, at least maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I think that before we meet, it would be really nice at least to have sort of an outline back kind of in place with places that some text can be put.
Sure. So yeah, I think maybe we don't want to rush, but maybe whenever you feel comfortable, maybe maybe
Yeah, I'm seeing, you know, this outline that you had.
yeah.
It probably needs to get kind of reorganized and reworked.
Right. I can.
You know, I can probably take a whack at this new at the introduction or parts in the introduction between now and a week from now.
Sure.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. So do we want to have a meeting next week or maybe next week?
Well, I either that or email. I think doing it after, I was just trying to have some target for having text together.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think we made a lot of progress here.
Yeah, that's a lot of progress. Yeah, we have. Yeah, when we have outline, it's much easier to write the text. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for some people, it's easier.
At least we solve a bigger problem. I mean, the outline is always a bigger concern for me. Figure out how to write.
Well, yeah. There's a different. Okay. By the way, that outline of yours is 2,100 words.
Yeah.
So
we're halfway there.
Well, no, we're not, because
5,000. No.
Yeah.
I think very likely we need to ask my colleague to give us more words, like maybe 6,000 or 7,000. Like,
well,
I think based on the scope, I think that's not 5,000 is not enough.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's meet either on the 16th or 17th and start some writing before then. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Maybe
Okay.
Axel, yeah, you can ask maybe the admin to schedule team. Maybe you can request to schedule time or whatever you feel comfortable.
Ross, do you want me to ask Ashley?
Yeah, you could send an email. How, if you just send an email with the people you want on the thing, and copy Ashley.
Sure.
Or send all of us and just say that I volunteered Ashley to do a doodle poll.
Okay.
I don't know for certain, but I suspect my calendar is worse than yours. Although Peter is you are probably also very busy. Axel, you're new, so obviously you don't have it. I think we're all pretty busy, but
yeah, totally understand. Yeah, and
right.
Maybe Axel and Peter, we can meet together, or Axel and we can meet together briefly. I think.
Sure. I mean, whatever.
Just a touch base next week to make sure we are still on the same page. Maybe briefly, maybe half an hour, 1 hour next week.
If you could take your outline or make a new one and sort of cut and paste or whatever so that it corresponds more to the way we organize things.
Right.
Then we can start writing and probably do some more reorganizing as we go.
Yeah. I will use the PPT to create a new Word file outline, and I will also mark your name. Maybe I will create a new put each one name there.
Please do this and whatever.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Fine.
And also, in terms of something, do we want Yulian to have to contribute something, or you feel comfortable?
Were you wanting Yulian to be a co-author? I mean,
I didn't talk with him yet, but I know him for years, so I just it's
it's up to you. I mean, you guys, what do you think, Peter and Axel? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I think just whatever help you need, if there's a certain section, but I don't know. I'm not really sure. He's had some involvement on the ICU robot stuff, but not that much. I don't know what else he might be doing.
Well, okay. One thing, I can't say anything about it because we're patenting it, but Julian and I are involved with the project with an anesthesiologist here on the intubation robot. So
Okay, that would be a good reason then.
Okay, yeah, and I will maybe
but
drop to
I
Julian.
don't know. I mean, we can't talk about that robot. I mean, we submitted a proposal and are filing a patent, and the anesthesiologist is somewhat paranoid
Yeah.
about it. So
Okay, yeah,
but I mean, Julian is brilliant. If there's pieces that you could ask him if he wants to be involved.
Sure, I will after him if he has the interest, and also if you don't have any objection. I think
No,
I don't know if it makes sense.
There's no reason that we would have an objection. I mean,
No.
Sorry, maybe that's a too strong word. Yeah. So okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. So you said you wanted me to maybe follow up after Ashley to do a doodle pool. Or...
yeah, that I would do.
Okay. Yeah, I will finish the outline today and email you and everyone.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Be sure she knows that the request is coming from me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say you requested to do this, not me.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the like almost 2 hour talking. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. See you soon. Yeah. Bye.
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 Bye. See you, Antonio. Yeah.
See you.